Hey guys, Jexie here. Welcome back to another video. So this video was inspired by posts I see online, specifically those that claim that if somebody is working a program of recovery that doesn't include complete abstinence, that they shouldn't celebrate their clean time as it's not the same amount of work that someone who's completely abstinent has to do, right? But as you guys know, I'm a big believer that recovery comes in all shapes and sizes. And so I wanted to put the question out to you guys. So I posted on Twitter, and I'd like to read you my question, and we'll go through some of the responses, and then we can discuss. Okay, so the question I posted on Twitter, in fact, I'll move over to the side so I can post it up here. So I wrote, I'm working on a bunch of videos to get back to regular uploading. Here's my question. Do you believe there is one right way to recover? Do you believe people who aren't completely abstinent are less serious about recovery? And I would love to hear your guys' thoughts down in the comments, but I'm going to read you some of what I wrote. And I replied to a lot of these, just keep in mind, with other questions. I very rarely gave my own perspective. I replied to a lot of what was wrote here with other questions. So I'm going to post them up. I am going to edit out the names because I didn't specifically get their permission and I don't want anybody to feel like, caught off guard or anything. So this person says, I'm going to pull up the whole thread. All right, I think there are many ways to arrive at a place of ongoing recovery, but they're likely to feature similar characteristics and approaches: fellowship, hope, ongoing self-improvement and growth, service to others, a broader vision beyond drinking and using, etc., which I completely agree with. And then he says, regarding non-abstinence-based approaches, I don't necessarily think they're less serious, but I do think it would be a whole lot harder than abstinence, especially for people with a dependency or as opposed to like a heavy drinker or user. My experience as an alcoholic is only abstinence works. This makes me think about the whole sober curious movement, which is a long discussion in and of itself. Good luck on your videos. So I do agree with that, right? Like I do think that all forms of recovery do have some things in common, right? Like as he mentioned, fellowship, hope, right? We talk about the fact that we can't do things alone in recovery, regardless of what recovery program that you choose to work or how you choose it, even if it's not a recovery program, but let's say you find religion, right? No matter what you're doing, you're still not alone. And I think that's a huge part, as well as hope. If you don't have hope that things are going to get better, then what are you really doing, right? All right, so let's read a couple other answers. This person says, I have arrived at the 12-step model. However, our book is suggestive that is to be suggestion only, is essentially. That's one of the things that I love about NA. It states it's simply how we have recovered. So essentially what this person is saying is that the reason that they enjoy AA, or really probably any other 12-step program, is those programs are not saying this is the only way. They're saying this is how it worked for us, and we're going to share that with you, which I think is right. And I think a lot of times 12-step programs, the people interpret the program differently than what the program actually is. So for example, people may say this is the only way, this is how you have to do it, right? But the program just says we've seen this way work and we'd love to share it with you. So another answer says there's no right way, and no, everyone is different. Maybe they have a heroin issue but drink a glass or two of wine, that's fine. I'm just happy they're drug free. I think that's true also, is that we have to recognize that harm reduction is a form of recovery, right? If you are a hardcore heroin user and you you stop using heroin but you have a glass of wine on the weekends or something, who am I to say that you're not in recovery? Just because that approach may not work for me or for some other people I know doesn't mean it's not working for them. And I think that it's really important that we stay open-minded to the fact that there are other ways to recover. So someone wrote, there are many roads to recovery, but consciously reducing substance use is not recovery. Remission maybe, but not recovery. And I said, well, what about a person who stops using cold turkey and never does any type of program or therapy, etc.? Are they in recovery simply because they don't use? Or does recovery require more than that? And So this person responded and said, now this is a different person than the original poster, the original question. They wrote, I just stopped on my own, don't use any type of program or attend meetings or anything, but I am 100% in recovery. I'm still learning about myself, my issues, and how to leave behind the problems I previously had, and I work on those every day to improve myself. To me, that's recovery. I think recovery is a spectrum, and people sit in different positions right across the range. I've had experience of people who use programs who seem to think that because it works for them, it's the only way, and push it on me relentlessly. But to me, recovery is a personal journey. And as long as we're all progressing every day, then that's recovery by any definition, and we can all support each other regardless of which vehicle we use to get there. And I 100% agree with that. I think so often, we get recovery and like abstinence confused, right? Recovery is, in my opinion, is about changing the way we've been living, right? So, the first person says, if you're not completely abstinent, then that's not recovery. But I posed the question, which unfortunately they didn't answer, is what about those people who are completely abstinent, excuse me, but are doing no work on themselves? Can that be considered recovery, right? And I think that what's important to recognize is that when we really get to the heart of the issue of what recovery is, our first instinct may not be right. There may be so much more we haven't considered, right? Like, it makes total sense to me that if you were, to say, well, recovery, you have to be completely abstinent. But most people who believe that don't believe that simply being completely abstinent means you're in recovery either. All right. So this person says, I've yet to meet one person in 31 years who said they were an addict and or alcoholic who could safely return to the occasional use of drugs or alcohol. And then someone responded to that, said, never heard of anyone going back out after 30 years. It happens. I've seen people go out after that kind of time. All right, so someone else writes, I don't think there's a right way. Everyone's recovery journey looks different. I have PKD, polycystic kidney disease, which my sister actually has. And my doctor wanted to prescribe me opioids. As an addict, I was obviously hesitant and asked for other options. Now I have medical marijuana and use CBD oils. And then they asked me, like, what's your personal opinion? I feel as long as I use the weed as the doctor suggests and not abuse it, it's not an issue. Whereas pills are dangerous because I would probably abuse them once I got them. And I think that that's really important, right? Like, there are a lot of people in recovery who deal with long-term pain issues. And for years, the answer was take opiates. And in most 12-step abstinent-based programs, it says there are times in our lives where we may have to take medications. So if instead of taking opioids, which we know is a highly addictive, highly dangerous substance, somebody can smoke some pot and get that same pain relief and do it under a doctor's care, why do we look at that as different? I think that safety-wise, smoking pot is going to be 100% safer for pain-related issues than taking opioids. So, again, these are all things that really is why, in my opinion, like, we need to have this broader idea of what it means to be in recovery. Because if we say, like, oh, if you use any substance, even if your doctor prescribes it, like, you're not clean, well, then we're cutting off a huge group of people who have to take certain medications who are clearly working a program. Let's see, someone wrote, I don't personally believe in a right way to recover. It's an individual journey marked by progress. However, it's much more than just not drinking or doing drugs. I think there has to be progress and growth or there is no recovery. And then he also wrote that he has a podcast episode on the subject if anyone's interested. That I will post with the name here because I do love shouting at other people. I do think that it's important that we recognize that recovery comes in all shapes and sizes, and I think the more opinions we have, the better we can work on our own personal recovery. So I love promoting other people. I've never listened to his podcast. I should, but it's there. All right. I'm also going to post here, someone who responded said that there are so many paths. The right one is individual for everyone, and they write a sober blog with podcasts if you're interested, so I'm also going to post that here. So some people just write, shorter answers like no and no, or, give me links to 12-step programs. And then this I love. This is from a doctor, and he says, there is no there is not one path that leads to addiction, which means there is not one path away from it. Options save lives. And he says, oh, and don't get me started on all the problems with abstinence. So, which to me sums it all up, right? We can't look at recovery as one approach because addiction is not just one way. We see how people can become addicted in all different ways. Look, if you have like one drink every single day at 4 o'clock and you need that, right? Like you could be addicted even if it's not an excessive amount, right? Or maybe you only use 1 week in a month. But when you use, it's this whole binge type thing where you're, ruining your life and saying things you don't mean and calling people, right? Like it doesn't matter. And I think it's really important as people in recovery that we don't try to judge another person's recovery, right? Why? My thought is this. The people who judge other people's recovery, it's because in my mind, either they're jealous or they feel this sort of elitism, right? If my program is better than yours, if my recovery is better than yours, right? It makes me feel good about what I'm doing. Or they're jealous in regards to the fact of how come that person's allowed to drink on the weekends and I can't? How come that person can smoke pot and I can't? Right? Again, but both of those things come down to a personal problem, not a problem with someone else's recovery. I think there's already too much judgment in recovery, and it shouldn't be one program fighting about another, right? That's not what this is about. Recovery is about saving lives. And if you are living a productive, happy life in recovery, who am I to tell you that you're doing it wrong? So please, tell me your thoughts. Leave it in the description box down in the comments down below. As always, there's always links to different programs in the description box. If you think I'm missing something there and you want me to promote something else, let me know. I'll put the links down below. I just put the ones that I know. But I am totally happy including other programs if you think that they're missing. So always let me know that. If you're interested in supporting this channel, I do have a Patreon. I don't post like a whole lot there, but I do try to do 1 to 2 extra videos a month, and I do have a private chat on my Discord for those who are patrons, but really I respond to everybody anyway. Follow me on Twitter. I always post, I'm going to be posting more of these kinds of thought-filled questions so that we can really have good conversations. And if you're okay with me sharing what you're saying, let me know, and I will, post your stuff up. Thank you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a wonderful day.